This is going to be one of those bowls. Hello, this is the Gentleman Scholar here, smoking, or trying to smoke, Cornell and Deal's Autumn Evening in this meerschaum. I call it my Thomas Kalheim meerschaum because I saw his and I immediately fell in love with it, and I want to get one of my own. Beg your pardon. I know it's been a little bit since I've been on, but I just want to say hello. Maybe do a couple shout outs, perhaps. Saw Gunner, I believe it's 68 Saw Gunner. He's a new guy, lives in Mexico, just over the border in Tijuana. He's fun to listen to. His family lives just over the border, I think in California, so he does frequent trips back and forth. Smoking Truck Piper Bob, good Yorkshire lad, big into family. His videos are always pleasant to watch. I felt like smoking pancakes and syrup today. That's why I have a Cornell and Deal. Also, Central Cal Piper. His latest video, one of his latest videos shows his front yard, what he's planning to do with it, and I noticed a little free library in his front yard. I want to talk about that for a second. Little free libraries. They do what it says on the tin, as they would say. They're like a box that you put out in front of your house, whether it's homemade or you can buy them store-bought now, and you put in a bunch of books, either that you've read or tried that didn't like, whatever. Wherever you got the book, doesn't matter. You put them in there. People walk by. They see if a book or two they like. They just take them out, and eventually they walk by and they put some in of their own. And I first heard about this in the Sun magazine, a monthly that I read. Oh, I'd like to learn how to talk freehand while smoking. It's got to be an art to it. One day. Anyway, so yeah, I've got two in my neighborhood, two of my walking routes, and I saw like a couple Ian Rankin novels in there. The Rebus novels, a Scottish detective series, takes place in Edinburgh. So I grabbed two out there, and so on my next run through the neighborhood, I brought a whole bunch of books that are clogging up my spare room that I've read that I don't necessarily want to keep, and I basically put them in there. And it's a great idea. And the Sun magazine is for lack of a better word, I guess it's a spiritual, sort of a lefty crunchy spiritualist magazine. And yeah, they get a little too big on the lefty crunchy part, but it's about social consciousness and environmental awareness. It's basically about the human beings trying to live in a confusing world, I guess, which is what it boils down to. And that's the first place I ever heard of little free libraries, which makes sense because they're all about the free exchange of ideas. Um, let's face it, you might find some books in the little free library you normally wouldn't try or search out in a bookstore. So, yeah. And there's another one, on another one of my walking routes. It's a freshly one that just grew, I want to say within the last couple of months or so. It's a good smoker. I want to say it grew in the last couple of months or so, and it's by a house that has solar panel there. It's had solar panels long before the current rush of solar paneling your house came around in the last 5 years or so. I want to say a Swedish family lives there. I don't know. I never spoke to them, but it makes sense that they would have a little free library. So now I've got two places to drop off books along my walking route, and I decide to resume my walks. That is. Beg your pardon. It's a great way to exchange ideas and whatnot. And I'd like to get one for myself. Hey, you can even order them up on Amazon, for God's sake. Some are plastic. They look like those plastic kids toys. That some people leave out, like the plastic big wheels and stuff that people like. Some parents leave out in the front yard to get sun faded. But I don't know. Bill's kind of a builder. Maybe I'll talk him into helping me make one. I suck at carpentry and everything like that because I'm too lazy to learn, basically. But hey, when you're a big reader like me, it's a it's a great free way to learn, get to know new authors, and search out new ideas. Excuse me. And now we're going to talk about something that little things that piss one off way more than they should. This pipe does not piss me off. Very good smoker. I guess meerschaums are probably some of the best smokers around. So they're a little pricey, but if you can afford to get one or a couple, feel free to put in your collection because they rarely let you down, and they generally don't ghost. The best smokes I've had in a while. Anyway, a week ago I had a 2-day trip. I was mailing off some letters. Some of you in the community know that I love to write letters. So go to mail a letter. My next door neighbor Pete comes down and says, "Are they not dropping off the mail?" I said, "What do you mean?" "I noticed they didn't take my package. Sometimes people leave package on the top for the mailman to take, like returns to Amazon or whatnot." So come to find out, one of our trees came, we have like a bank of mailboxes with a canopy, like a wooden canopy rain shelter over it. Well, one of the dead trees fell on top of the roof and knocked the roof kind of off the beams a little bit. Um, I never felt unsafe underneath it, but that's just me. Anyway, the mailman decided that he wasn't dropping off mail because there was a safety issue. Fair enough, but a little context here. This mailman is just a bit uptight. And I know an uptight person because I used to be an uptight person. And uptight people, I never talked to him personally or interacted with him, but just by the way he acts, you can tell uptight people make everyone else around them miserable. And I'll give you a good example. Once upon a time, in the back of the letterbox, we have our name. We used to have our names. My husband and I, we had our names like in the back there, so we could identify who we were. Well, apparently that fell off or blew off or something like that. And he writes on our mail. He goes, "I need the names are gone on the box." Scrawls it across the mail. I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry." Let it go a couple days, and it was really irking him. So I got two address labels and put them on a piece of cardboard and slapped it in the back. So apparently that solved the problem. In the previous winter, we had a foot of snow outside the bank of mailboxes, and he decided not to leave the mail then. He decided to go on the stretch of not leaving the mail. Okay, fair enough. I mean, maybe he didn't want to walk through a foot of snow. Maybe it wasn't, adequately shoveled. Fair enough. Okay, but there was both times, there was no notification given. That first time and the third time, there's no notification given to any one of the condo owners at all. There's like 10 units in our condo here. Beg your pardon? I think I might have to light this again. Beg your pardon, folks. Dash that out a little bit. A lot of ash coming out. So, basically, no notification was given except my next door neighbor. She got a notice. She was the only one I know of who got a notice that there was no mail coming through. This last time. The other time, nothing. It just stopped getting mail. Excuse me. Getting there. So, the last week or so, we've been going out to Perimeter Road to get our mail. It's down by the Manchester Airport, MHT. Kind of pain in the ass. So anyway, Pete hammers the beams back into the roof and basically makes it as good as new, basically. And so for 2 or 3 days after that, we're still not getting our mail. So both looking into it independently. So after 2 trips of getting like all this backed up mail, finally yesterday he takes a look at it and decides that it's safe and decides to start giving us mail again. I'm like, it's a little thing, but it bothered me more than it should have. And I think it's mostly because one person decided, because it looked unsafe to them, or they didn't feel like dropping off mail where there were no names. I've seen mailboxes around that don't have names on them. Apparently it's not a big deal. They get their mail. But it bothered me a little more than it should, because I think one person, because of whatever temperament they decide to have, they decided that they weren't going to drop off mail because they didn't like how something looked or whatever, and they didn't even bother to give anyone notice about it. They just, I'm not doing it, and that's it. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm not exactly employee of the month myself, but I would wonder what would happen if I was on the plane and before we were going out to give drinks out, you know what? There's a bag strap out in the aisle. Too dangerous to give out, too dangerous to go out and give do a beverage service. So we're just not going to do one. And then not tell anybody. And then when people come back to complain, oh yeah, well we couldn't really do a beverage service because there's 1 or 2 bag straps out in the aisle, so it's too dangerous to bring the cart out. I'm wondering how that would go down. But anyway, enough bitching. It just kind of bothered me because I'm a big letter writer, like I said, as some of you know, and so when the flow of mail gets disrupted, just get a little bit bitchy. Anyway, that's all, folks. I just wanted to say hello. It's been about 3 weeks since my last video. It's going on to 15 minutes. I've got a 2-day trip tomorrow. 2 legs out to Bozeman by way of Minneapolis. And then I come back by way of Salt Lake City back to Boston on the 2nd. Not a hard trip, but I'm a lazy bastard, so I don't want to do it on this beautiful weekend. But how it plays out is how it plays out. Anyway, folks, I wish you well. I hope you're doing okay, and enjoy your smokes. We'll talk to you later.